Hi, I'm John Bryan. Thanks for joining me. I'm just trying to get my wireless headset working. I probably should have done that beforehand. But this is episode 46 of what I call Freedom is Scary. And as many of you know, I'm a civil rights lawyer practicing out of West Virginia. But this, one of my favorite topics is Second Amendment, protecting the Second Amendment, which allows us to protect all of the other rights that we have, and particularly the Fourth Amendment. So anything, any actions that we can take to protect gun rights here in this country, even though people don't realize it, it helps everybody who wants to have life, liberty, and property in this country, or to pursue their happiness, because a lot of people out there are on a mission to take that away. Hang on, let me see. All right, I think I got it working now. All right, so I've never really had anything to do with cryptocurrency. And so I wanted to make a video here. And this is the suggestion of John Crump from the Gun Owners of America, who was talking to us the other day about being able to buy firearms related items with, something other than the US dollar, and for various reasons. And that's what we're going to talk about. And here today we have a guy named Rob McNealy, who is one of the co-founders of a cryptocurrency. And it's called TUSC. And he'll explain what that is and why you need to know about it, why it's important. So let me go ahead and bring him on here. Hey, Rob,
Hey.
Can you hear me?
I can, John. How are you today?
I'm doing well. I appreciate you joining us. I finally got my headphones working. You would have thought that I had done that beforehand, but like many people, I guess I have a day job and I'm thinking about other things.
I hear you. It's I do a lot of interviews, and sometimes you're like trying to why is my camera not working now? It worked like the last interview 20 minutes ago or whatever, and you're trying to plug in the USB drive in and out, and it's like, oh, it's just like, yeah. Sometimes the tech issues, even in this day and age, it's great thing it's not like it was 15 years ago with Windows always having to be rebooted and stuff, but it's still some days it's frustrating.
Okay, so we had never met before. John Crump sort of put us in contact and suggested that we may have some interest in common here. So let me just by quick way of introduction, and correct me if I'm wrong here, but you're a serial entrepreneur, a podcaster, a cryptocurrency advocate, self-defense activist. You've been involved in the corporate MBA world, and you know a lot about cryptocurrency. You're into guns specifically, I assume. So you share the same values, I would imagine, as far as freedom, liberty, the Second Amendment, our natural rights, and all that.
I think I do.
And you live in Salt Lake City, Utah. Yep. So what time is it there?
We're 2 hours behind you.
Like 4:30.
We are at 4:30, Mountain Time. Okay. And as of last week, we are the 17th constitutional carry state in the country. So I'm actually getting pretty proud of my state. So.
Well, I do have a degree in political science, and I recall in my years of study to get that degree that we had all the rankings at that time of the conservative versus liberal states in the country, and Utah was always at the top of the list for the #1 most conservative state. Never would really have imagined, though, fast forward 20 years, and now Utah senator is Mitt Romney in the way that he's acted. So I guess there are explanations for that, but that's probably another video.
Yeah, I'm not a huge fan of the Rompster. I don't live that far from him either. But essentially, I think a lot of that was money and religion that got him in. He had a huge political machine when he ran, and it was just kind of a done deal. I don't think he had to work very hard to get that seat. But I think there's a lot of people that are really regretting that.
Well, we can't really talk here in West Virginia with Joe Manchin, and ironically, he's like the last thread, hanging right now, keeping us from awful federal gun control legislation. And he was originally given an A by the NRA and pretended to be pro Second Amendment, pro gun rights when he wasn't. He wasn't at all. So it's hard for us to throw any stones towards Utah and Mitt Romney. And I think the common denominator is that any of these politicians, after they're in office for a while, that's what politicians do, is they feather their own nest and they put their buddies in the positions of power and the positions that can help keep them in power for years to come. And it's like Manchin hasn't been governor here for I don't know how many years, but yet there are bureaucracies still all over the place with his political appointees and buddies still there. And so usually when you've got a semi-communist taking some action in government somewhere in West Virginia, you can, there's a safe bet like, oh yeah, he was one of Manchin's buddies. So anyways, cryptocurrency, as we were talking earlier, probably like a lot of people, I know close to nothing about cryptocurrency other than just headlines I've seen, other discussions I've heard. Probably my son knows more about cryptocurrency, and I told him I was going to talk to you today, and so he was asking me questions I didn't even quite understand. So maybe just for people like me, can you explain what cryptocurrency is, just in general?
Just in general, it's a new form of money that's controlled by software. It's open source software for most types of cryptocurrencies. And there's a lot of differences, by the way, with different cryptocurrencies, but we don't need to get into the weeds on that now. The big difference between cryptocurrencies and typical government issued paper money we call fiat currencies is that government politicians don't control them. And centralized corporations don't generally control them. And so many cryptocurrencies are what we call decentralized. And for instance, with TUSC, our crypto project, there's no corporation that runs it. There's no LLC. There's no C Corp, no S Corp, no CEO. Decisions about how the software and the project is governed are done with a very extensive voting system. So if you own one TUSC, you get a vote. If you want to contribute code or work and support the network via marketing or anything, to be honest, you can put in what we call a worker proposal, and then people that hold TUSC get to vote on whether or not they approve your worker proposal. And that's the basic gist of what cryptocurrencies are. Why do we care about that? And I think a lot of people get a little like, oh, it's intangible. Well, about 75% of all government issued currency is also intangible. I mean, we already have a digital dollar right now. Most of the time there is not, you move money around through, you deposit a check with direct deposit, you pay for something with the debit card or an ACH out of that same account, it gets deposited someone else. So there's no printed currency moving around for that in a lot of cases. And so that already is a digital system. I think the big thing with cryptocurrencies is who controls it and what are the rules around the policies issuing it. So right now, and I'll be honest, I'm not a big fan of Donald Trump for a variety of reasons. Mainly, his very awful record on gun control issues and wasted opportunities there. But I'm not here to throw rocks. But the one thing we do know that Donald Trump did is he created 10 trillion new dollars and added that to the national debt in the last 4 years. And it seems like every president doubles down on what the last or previous president added to the national debt. And so what happens is when government politicians, presidents, premiers, kings, whatever, just keep printing more money, it dilutes the value of all the printed money in circulation. And in the history of mankind, all government issued paper currency have always gone to zero. Bar none, 100% so far track record. And what happens and why that is that politicians get greedy. They have a lot of power when they can print more money. And then usually those empires die under the weight of their debt and corruption. And I don't think the dollar is immune to that. And I believe that even though Donald Trump gave us 10 trillion more national debt, Joe Biden and Kamala Harris will probably double or triple that during their administration. And so I like to throw rocks evenly on that issue. But what happens is when politicians keep adding and building up more national debt and printing more currency, it just devalues everything. And that's what we get, inflation. And I don't know if you noticed the latest consumer price index, but prices are going up. Inflation is starting to land because of all that money printing. And a lot of people will say that price manipulation and dollar manipulation and inflation are a stealth tax on people, because it erodes your buying power, but you don't really notice it. It's a real gradual kind of thing. And a lot of people don't understand what causes it. Well, with cryptocurrency, the rules about how fast a money can grow if there's an inflation rate, or how many coins, for instance, can be ever created, like with Bitcoin, can be capped. So for instance, Bitcoin, there's only ever going to be 21 million Bitcoin ever minted. That's it. And we're at like 18.5 million have already been mined on the Bitcoin blockchain. And so I think the big difference is that we actually have open source policies on how these cryptocurrencies are managed, designed, where anybody can go look at the rules at any time and know what the rules are. Whereas with like a government issued currency, you don't know what the rules are. You know, one day the politicians can just take a vote. We'll go print another trillion, $2 trillion, $5 trillion. Damn, what happens to the inflation? Damn, what happens to the buying power of Americans when you do that? Because you just essentially tax them more. You just did it kind of in a roundabout, indirect way. So in many respects, cryptocurrencies are they basically have a lot more immunity to corruption. Not saying they are 100% immune from it, but for the average person, cryptocurrencies are something that are fairer. You understand what the rules are. You understand what, quote unquote, the monetary policy around the cryptocurrency is. So in essence, it's just money not controlled by government, but controlled by the people that use it.
This guy Matthew says, and I did have this question written down. Lots of people trade crypto for gold. Ain't nobody trading gold for crypto. What does that tell you? And that wasn't specifically my question, obviously, but you know, one of my concerns was what about crypto versus cash? What about crypto versus gold when it comes to transactions? Obviously, it's difficult to beat gold, but what are some of the differences or disadvantages of crypto versus cash or gold?
Well, cash is 100% anonymous. Cryptocurrencies and gold transactions are less so. Again, there's a lot of variations for privacy aspects when it comes to cryptocurrency. The benefit of cryptocurrency is you can move a large store of value across the planet almost instantaneously for very little money. Not very easy to move gold around. And it's actually incredibly hard to move cash around, depending on the amount. If you want to move, more than $10,000 outside the country, you raise a lot of red flags with suspicious transaction reports, and you have to declare it and a bunch of other things. There's sometimes taxes involved with that. So I think there's a lot of differences. So, and again, there's a lot of differences between cryptocurrencies. There's some cryptocurrencies like Bitcoin, which has really become this like 401k. It's a store of value. People aren't spending Bitcoin because it can go up in value so quickly, and it usually does. And so it's not really, it kind of failed at its mission to be something that people spend every day on everyday items. But gold, people don't spend gold on everyday items either. And people don't sell their Tesla stock or their Amazon stock to buy groceries or gas or haircuts either. So it really depends on how you're viewing what a particular crypto does or doesn't do. So I would say for most of the bigger cryptocurrencies out there, most of them are what we call a store of value, meaning that you can put the money in, it either might go up in value or at least hold its value, that you can then later extract at a different time. The benefit of some of those is that, for instance, if I wanted to buy something in a different country or a different state that might be a big ticket item, I wouldn't have to maybe liquidate my 401k and deal with the tax penalties. I might not have to deal with selling my Amazon stock. I could literally physically move that Amazon stock to whomever I want to buy, say a house or a car or something with, and then I can make that purchase. But I think it just depends if you're looking at transactional cryptocurrencies or more of these store of value cryptocurrencies. There are some variations even among the cryptocurrency, but the big distinction is cash, gold, and cryptocurrency are all different asset classes. And so it's hard to be comparing apples to apples because there's just differences between those things. It's like comparing real estate to art. They're just different classes of investments.
So it's just like another tool in the toolbox sort of deal.
It is. And there's a lot of people in the crypto world that really hate on gold bugs. And there's this weird rivalry between these like Bitcoin maximalist types and the gold precious metals world. I think that fight is silly to me. I own cryptocurrency and precious metals, and I think they both have their advantages. My precious metals are very consistent with what their value is. They hold their value. They're extremely stable, even over long periods of time. They're not susceptible to physical loss very easily. They're fairly easy to liquidate in most cities. There's a gold or coin store. But I like to hold things sometimes. So I think having precious metals is a good thing. But I also think having cryptocurrency is a good thing. The benefits to like a cryptocurrency is it's generally, depending on the crypto, they're a lot more liquid. Even it's easier to sell them than gold or silver at this point. But if you want to move it around digitally, like you say, for instance, with a transactional cryptocurrency like TUSC, if you want to buy something, we're a payment system. So you can buy something online. It really will help retailers, do e-commerce. But the bigger benefit, even over cash, for instance, and again, the problem we're trying to solve right now is the fact that the retailers in the gun space are under attack and have been essentially since 2012. And the one benefit to, say, paying or accepting payments in a cryptocurrency like TUSC is that we're decentralized in a way that we can't shut your account down for political reasons. So right now, if you go and look at any third-party payment system like PayPal or Square or Cash App, Venmo, all those different payment systems, because of their underlying banking relationships, their terms of service prohibit you from even engaging with firearms, even if you're a lawful gun retailer. And there's been nightmare upon nightmare story that I've heard where these gun retailers will set up a business that doesn't mention anything about guns. They set up a PayPal account because it's the only account they can transact in, online very easily. And then 2 months later, they just get it shut down. And then all their personal accounts get shut down that's associated with that same email address. And then PayPal lock up their money. And it might take 6 months or a year for them to get the money out. And it's a big nightmare. And in addition, in the gun world right now, it's very difficult to even get a checking account for these lawfully, heavily regulated gun retailers. These FFLs have a hard time with all banking services. But even getting if they can get a credit card, merchant account, this is where TUSC is trying to fill this void, is that they're paying up to 7% credit card transaction fees. They have a huge chargeback problem because they're considered a red flag, high risk industry. And just the normal, issues around dealing with credit cards. And so with TUSC, our network fee for a transaction is only 0.5%. There's zero chargeback risk. You get instant settlement. You don't have to wait for a week for the Visa to send you your money. And it's an insurance policy in case, Operation Choke Point really does get revived like they're doing and getting debanked. So the big difference is we can't shut you down like a bank can or like Venmo or PayPal can.
Now, what about the concern like Matthew keeps bringing up here? Show me your crypto. You can't. I can go in my safe and show you my gold and silver. And I think you already explained that it's not necessarily, nothing's better than gold.
and it doesn't have the, it's not as good as gold necessarily, but gold has its problems. It's heavy as hell for one thing, and you have to keep it in your safe. You can't send it automatically over the internet and buy some sort of firearms stuff over the internet. And
you can't buy anything. You can't buy anything with gold. Go to a grocery store, try to buy something with gold. Have good luck with that.
So what about this concern? Like, gold obviously is safe physically as long as you don't lose it or it gets stolen. But what about, he says, like, boom, your power's gone and the cryptocurrency disappears. I mean, what is that? Is that an actual fear? How does that work? I mean, what literally like, protects it or like preserves, like, who has what?
So we call them block producers and standby block producers. But right now we have 21 full-time active servers. Now, that's not me. This is the interesting thing about decentralized project. People can set up their own server and they can get paid in TUSC to operate that server. Anybody can do that. That part is technically anonymous. I don't know who sets up the servers. And those servers, we call them these block producers, get elected then to produce blocks for the network and run the network and help move the transactions along through the network. And then we have 79 standby block producers that also get paid. And so it's like a self-healing network. So if one of those 21 block producers go down, it takes just a quick vote and boom, a backup block producer, fills it in. And so ultimately for the power outage thing, okay, well, how has the world everywhere in the entire planet ever actually had a global wide power outage? No. Has there been a power outage that's ever been permanent in the United States or any other country in the world? Pretty much not. So even in Texas, which was like almost a statewide, essentially like a grid down scenario last week, most of the power is coming back on already. And so most of the time, if you look at power outages, they're regional and temporary. If we have a global blackout that is permanent, like, that's an end of the world scenario. To be honest, I think even gold at that point is going to be kind of worthless because you're just going to be fighting for people over scraps of wood and to burn and fighting over people for scraps to eat. So I think that is a very extreme example, but it's also probably the least likely example to happen. But so you're saying, but how the blocks are done and how the block production is done is that our network's decentralized. There's servers that run the block TUSC or the TUSC blockchain all over the planet. So even if Texas went down, I don't even know if there is a node in Texas that's run in Texas where the physical server is. I don't know if there is one in Texas right now. But the fact is the network's still running. It's like saying is what happens, I think that question is like, do I set up an e-commerce website because the entire internet might go away at some point? I mean, it's literally that kind of question. Well, if you think about how would you take down the internet for the entire planet, and would that be a permanent thing if you could even do that? It's the same thing with the running a blockchain. The servers are all over the planet, run by individuals, and there's backups. So ultimately, if one goes down, another one can take its spot.
Yeah, and just real quickly, going back to what you're talking about with some of these companies like PayPal, like if you've ever bought or sold anything firearms related off the internet, that if you use PayPal, you cannot put anything about guns in the comment section or anything like that. And if you do, both parties are getting kicked off of PayPal, and that just sucks. They're an anti-gun company, but they're all like this, and they're all getting worse. I mean, right. Here's the point. Why I think it's relevant is, and it's going to be more relevant, is because pretty soon, even if they can't, Biden or Kamala Harris, even if they can't completely get rid of the Second Amendment or enact whatever sort of gun ban or gun control legislation they want, you can see the connection between these corporations and the government that occurred just this past election cycle. All they have to do is basically boot firearms companies, firearm manufacturers, and anything related, just keep them from processing any transactions or being able to engage in any banking. I mean, that's what you see with the hemp industry as well. Even in West Virginia, where they had, recently completely legalized the hemp industry, still no banks were willing to get involved in any way in that industry. And it made it very, very difficult. So it's going to get, I think, even worse and worse and worse for the gun industry. So they're going to try to basically, bully them out of existence using big tech and the federal government.
Well, I mean, I'm the first guy to say that I know there's lots of people that don't understand the technology, and I respect that. Cryptocurrency payments, maybe not for everybody. The fact is, we're focused on a very specific problem that is a very big problem to gun retailers, especially a lot of the small mom and pop shops. We're trying to solve that problem. EMP is great. I mean, look, I'm a prepper. I run a prepping conference every year in Utah. Okay. So I get all the stuff about EMP. We have special forces guys. We have scientists. We talk about EMP and it's also the least likely kind of disaster that's ever going to happen. And if it does, pretty much the only thing that's really going to be important is going to be bullets and food at that point. So I understand where people are coming from, but we're not trying to worry about that with our crypto project. We're focused on a real life problem affecting thousands of, registered lawful FFLs folks that need an option, because paying 7% transaction fees, especially when you're selling guns, by the way, most people don't realize that there's very little margin on a gun, and if you're selling guns, there's not a lot of money there. And so if we can help protect those retailers and give them another payment option that can't shut them down for political reasons, that's the problem we're trying to solve. And I totally respect people that, are worried about EMP and things like that and love their gold. I love my gold too. I'm not anti-gold. But that, again, if you want to buy, some kind of specialized gun component from a mom and pop shop in West Virginia and you live in Texas, well, you can't really ship them your gold very easily. Whereas you can do that with cryptocurrency payments. And that's what we're trying to focus on. That is the problem.
Yeah, and another thing, this is a good segue to something I should have said earlier. Another thing about these companies and big tech, including, what we're streaming on right now, is you can see, or I don't know if you can see, I can see from my side, if I live cast a video that has anything to do with firearms, they automatically, their algorithms, boom, they suppress it. They completely suppress it. And regarding your company specifically, it was pretty funny when I set it up to live stream on my two Facebook pages as well. My lawyer one, and then my other one is specifically called Freedom is Scary. And Facebook immediately kicked them out. It said, boom. I've never seen it say this before, actually, from the StreamYard website. It said, this is a violation of our community standards. And it specifically said TUSC.network. Like, your website said, no, that's violation of Facebook's community standards.
Yeah,
we've been the get-go. So I had to delete that.
Well, it's interesting, like on Facebook and Instagram, we still have accounts. We have a Facebook page, we have a Facebook group, and we have an Instagram account. And we can still post. We've never been shut down. But if you try to even tag the TUSC network, Instagram, it'll say you're violating community standards. And so it's just part of the issue. The fact is we are focused on the gun industry and dealing with this problem and solving a problem with cryptocurrency. Again, it's not the end all be all, because I mean, the tech is new. And I think there's a lot of growth we're going to be doing in the future. But again, I think a lot of people, they may be suspicious of it. I want to address a question in your group. Do you mind? There's a comment in there I'd like to break. They said that
I don't know if you can bring it up or not, but if you can, go for it.
Well, someone made the comment that cryptocurrency is a fiat currency.
Yeah, Matthew. Matthew wants to debate you.
I see that, and he's got more energy than I do. But I'd like to address that. And there's this. You got to remember, the United States, the U.S. dollar has been off the gold standard since 1971. But fiat currencies, meaning that the government says the value of dollar is this. The big difference between that and, say, cryptocurrencies is I have no control over the value of what a TUSC is worth. The market determines the value of TUSC, and I think that's correct. So a lot of people get really hung up on what value is. There is no such thing in economics as intrinsic value, and a lot of people think there is. And by the way, gold doesn't have intrinsic value either. All value is subjective to the person at the time of a purchase. And this is hard for grasp because people think that even precious metals have intrinsic value. They don't. They might have utility, but they don't have intrinsic value. For instance, I'll give a great example. You're in the desert. You're dying of thirst. Someone has a glass of water in one hand and a bar of gold in the other. And they say you get to choose one. Which one are you going to choose? You're going to choose the water because at that time, you value your life in that water more than you do that bar of gold. And the same thing. And so ultimately, free markets are the way that value is determined. So for instance, with TUSC, we never sold TUSC. We never sold our tokens. And then when we converted to our own blockchain, we never sold coins ever. But they are traded on 5 exchanges right now. We'll be getting on more exchanges in time. And how the true value of something like a security or any commodity, oil, gold, is based on what the market is willing to pay for it at a given time. That is how value is derived. But all value is subjective. But cryptocurrencies are not fiat currencies. They're market-derived pricing, and that is the market price. And that is what the value of TUSC or any other crypto that's traded on exchange, that's how that value is determined.
What about Matthew's point that, like, all right, if it's not fiat, then the mom and pop gun shop still has to. I mean, they can't go to their local grocery store and use cryptocurrency to buy milk and bread. So they're going to have to convert that cryptocurrency to something fiat.
So that's not technically true 100%. So one, like I said earlier, the technology is new. I mean, this is just coming out. And so there's a lot of growth that needs to be had. Just like, can you imagine what buying something on Amazon 20 years ago compared to what it is today? It's very different. Things grow, things get adapt. Just like e-commerce is very different than it was 20 years ago. And so just like anything else, we're new into the life cycle of crypto payments. And so it's a little kludgy at this point. But to answer your question, so there's a couple ways you can handle that. Right now, depending on what exchanges you're on, they do have fiat-powered credit debit cards, essentially, so that you can pay, like the Fold card. CoinZoom exchange has a crypto debit card as well. So you can load up your cryptocurrency on that exchange, and you can load up that card, and you can go to the grocery store and buy groceries with that. Another thing is that you can absolutely exchange it almost instantaneously to either a stable coin or cash out to fiat. So there are options for that. But over the long term, what we're trying to do is create kind of a circular ecosystem where people aren't going to want to cash out to fiat. And so how we do that is over time, we get enough retailers that accept it. And then you get enough retailers accepting it and people paying it. And then the distributors will accept it. So then instead of having to cash out to buy something from the regional RSR group or Crow Shooting Supply or any other, wholesalers in the gun world, maybe they'll accept TUSC. So you don't have to sell your TUSC to fiat, convert it to some other form of payment to buy something from those distributors. They'll just take TUSC, and then it goes up the chain from there. But that's just a time in thing. It's just a mileage. It's just going to take a while to get there. But we're working on that, and it's part of our roadmap.
Now, old man's question right here. This is another kind of segue into some of the questions I had. And this is, I think there's two components of this that interest me. One is the ability to enable the gun industry, especially smaller companies, to be able to operate, which is primarily taking place over the internet. And then you have the other interest that I have is being able to operate financially in a way that's not being controlled by the government and not necessarily subject to the government's reach, government regulation. But I guess I don't know if the government can reach cryptocurrency or not. Address that for me. I mean, is cryptocurrency or is TUSC specifically immune from federal government regulation?
And no, of course not. Every financial institution in the country is subject to regulation. Now, there's a whole lot of nexus there, and that's a big legal term, right? But there's a lot of overlap between what agencies do regulate cryptocurrencies, even in the United States. What's happening right now in the United States, as far as the main regulation for the cryptos, is that the government's really trying to control the on and off ramps from dollars or Swiss francs or whatever into and out of cryptocurrencies. And they're doing that at the exchange level. And so that's where a lot of that kind of AML, KYC, anti-money laundering, know your customer laws, they've really been pushing hammering the exchanges on that. So right now, most cryptocurrencies aren't privacy coins. You do have to dox yourself to use them. If you want to buy illegal stuff, you want to do something that there's zero paperwork on, go use dollars. That's what all the drug dealers do. That's what all the really corrupt people do. Use dollars. And trust me, I like to pay cash too. I am not a bigot when it comes to, either asset classes or currencies. I use what works for the mission at hand. And I think like I said, we're trying to focus on one particular mission right now, and that's to come up with a backup plan to protect lawful gun retailers from debanking. And they have a huge recognized payment problem in the gun world. And if you talk to gun retailers, I get it. If you're living in a cave somewhere and you're so worried about your privacy and you're so worried about other things that the government's going to get you like a boogeyman, then probably most cryptos aren't for you. And I respect that. I respect that position. And we certainly have heard this a lot before. But again, they may not be who the customer is for us. I think ultimately it's not a bad thing. Like, we are definitely a very niche project right now. We do hope to grow into other industries as time goes on, as we get adopted and we continue to grow. I absolutely will welcome other industries, much like Amazon was a bookstore for like the first several years they were in business, and then they branched out in other industries. We're focused on the gun industry because it's the biggest industry that has a recognized problem with payments. The gun industry is a constitutionally protected industry. It's an industry I'm extremely passionate about, and it's an industry that's under attack right now. And so we've seen in the last few months with the debanking of like Parler and debanking of a lot of different gun stores are getting kicked off platforms and things like that. That's the problem we're trying to solve. And I get, if you don't want to buy a gun with crypto, hey, that's fine. Don't buy a gun. But the fact is, there's a lot of gun retailers that are trying to make business online, to do business online. And this is that problem we're trying to solve.
Yeah. And back to big tech, what I was going to say is, from my side, where I can see, I could stream a live video about how to make my favorite recipe of meatloaf, and they'll broadcast it out there on Facebook and YouTube. But if it has anything to do with guns, they limit it so much, and I can tell it specifically. So, to get around that, please, hit like and share, and send to any gun people that because I that's specifically why I wanted to talk about this. Let me ask you this. One of the concerns, going back to government, the interaction with government. Now, I've seen in a lot of the warrants that have come out of some of the arrests from the January 6th protest at the Capitol, where the FBI, and I know the ATF have been doing this as well, it's been very easy for them to get information from some of these companies. And for instance, stamps.com. I mean, one of the first things they do is go stamps.com and get the record of every person who's been mailed a particular product, or who you mailed a particular product to. And that they've been doing that to the gun industry. So what's the deal with, cryptocurrency in general, or TUSC specifically, as far as, information being provided to the government, or, what happens if you were to get a subpoena from the federal government? Where is information kept? And if so, is it susceptible to being shared or subpoena?
We have zero. So again, there is no centralized TUSC authority, company, anything. So I'm one of the co-founders, but just over a year ago, when we launched the blockchain and it was taken over by the block producers, I gave up all control that we had at that point. So there is no centralized data collected anywhere. There is no database at all. There is the blockchain, and the blockchain is public. So if you set up a TUSC account, it is human readable, but I don't know who that is. There's nothing, there's no information collected even by the blockchain. So if you wanted to, we like to say that it's not anonymous, it's pseudonymous. So you can set up right now, you can go to TUSC.network. And by the way, someone's in there talking about setting up block producer. So if you go to TUSC.network, there's a community section and there's documents on how you can set up a block producer node for the network. So TUSC.network, if you're interested in, learning about the community, join our Telegram group, join our Discord, and there's lots of people that can help you set up whatever you're interested in. But if you go to TUSC.network, you can go and set up a free TUSC account. There's no information collected whatsoever, zero. And so you're just putting, you're setting up that wallet on the blockchain, and then you do what you want with it. But I have no way to know who you are, and none of that information is collected. I always tell people, go through the process. You can set up an account. There's nothing. It's on a blockchain that's spread across the planet. But there is no central database that I personally have access to. We don't collect any personalized information at all.
Is there any difference between TUSC specifically and other crypto? I mean, what are the differences between, I know that you're gearing this right now towards the firearms industry because you see a need for it, but what's the difference between TUSC and other cryptos out there?
So I would say it depends on the crypto, but in general, the implementation of how we're trying to get adoption. And so if you look at, there's literally thousands of cryptocurrencies, Bitcoin being the biggest and the first. And what's happening is no one's spending crypto like money out of any of those projects. Very little money is actually being spent for payments. So what made the things that made Bitcoin a really good investment has actually made it a really crappy payments, network. Now, a lot of Bitcoin maximalists will argue with me. And by the way, I'm not anti-Bitcoin. I own a lot of Bitcoin too. And I'm a big believer in the project. I just don't believe it's going to be a payments project. It's an investment project. It's a store of value project. So I think the big difference between us and a lot of other cryptocurrencies is how we plan to get mass adoption. And so we created, when we started in building this project, we said, how do you build and market a decentralized project like a startup, but you're not centralized like a startup? And that was really complicated. But what we came up with is this thing called the marketing partner, which is a term limited and elected body that is its job is to go out and, help onboard retailers and get people in the industry to use TUSC. And I don't know any other blockchain that's done that. And it was kind of complicated trying to figure it out. And so one of the things that we're doing is we're focused on an industry. So another thing that I don't know of any other cryptos that are doing is we're centrally focused in one space. So whatever marketing time, effort, and PR that we are able to accumulate, we're focused in one space to help support that, building that circular kind of economy in that industry. Thirdly, we're knocking on doors and spending time with the industry. So if you look at a lot of people in other crypto projects, they might go to crypto conferences, but they don't go to any industry conferences. So last year, not this year, but technically a year ago at the last SHOT Show, we were the only crypto payment project that was there. No one from Bitcoin was there. No one from Ethereum or Dash or anywhere else was there, but we were. And so we spend more time going to gun-related events, which we believe is our industry, than we even go to crypto events. And crypto is kind of its own industry too. But we feel that gun retailers are technically our customers, and we're treating them much like a startup would treat customers. And so we believe that if we continue down this path, we'll be one of the first cryptos to actually get some mass adoption of our project. Right now, we have the payment gateways, the e-commerce plugins for e-commerce websites will be deployed in about 3.5 weeks. We already have a list of about 15 retailers that are already accepting TUSC as a payment, are willing to accept TUSC as a payment once those gateways are open. We've had multiple retailers in our pilot over the last 6 months. Last night, I was down in Provo, Utah at Citizen Armor. It's a body armor manufacturer. And we got a tour of the factory, and we took 2 NFL players down there, and they bought TUSC last night, or bought body armor with TUSC last night. And so it's been very interesting kind of walking through this process and starting to explain how crypto can be, not necessarily a replacement for a lot of businesses if they have other payment processes in place, but it's a great backup for them right now. It's another option. But again, we're early in this industry. So it's kind of like doing e-commerce in 1998, right? It's just like a new thing. But if you look back and said, when would be the best time to get involved with Amazon, would have been 1996, right? But you just never know where things are going to go. But I think we're just kind of focused on growing our project in a very unique way compared to what the other crypto projects are doing out there. And I think that's just going to make the difference for us.
So if a company, once they get set up to accept crypto or accept TUSC, and they get paid for a product, say body armor, logistically, how do they then convert that to cash or to US dollars in their bank account?
So building liquidity is an ongoing process, and it's a growth-related process. So the more volume you get on existing exchanges, you can essentially qualify to get on bigger exchanges. So currently, we're traded on 5 different exchanges. We will be on bigger exchanges by the end of the year, and we're also in talks with a large ATM. There's a crypto ATM network I think they're in all 50 states now. So I think as our liquidity grows, we'll be getting on their network and a bunch of things. So there's a lot of different ways that you can input and output, but on and off ramp into crypto. Even Coinstars, you can buy Bitcoin at Coinstars now. I mean, this is not like a fad. It's like, this is like becoming mainstream. Elon Musk, I think he's technically the richest person in the world, just put $1.5 billion into Bitcoin. It's early, but look at what the smart money's doing right now and where they're going. But I think ultimately the liquidity, the on and off ramps, those are only get bigger and more diverse in time. So that's just a growth process, and we're going through that process, and we feel pretty comfortable where we're going with it.
So with as you call it, the on and off ramps, is it the same? I mean, is it exactly the same pretty much with TUSC as other cryptos?
Yeah. All cryptos have we call it the on and off ramp problem. Every crypto has that. But I think the difference is that we're just really focused on one industry right now, and no other cryptos are really doing that. But we're in talks with lots of people. So it's just, we know what we have. We know where we need to be to qualify to get on these bigger exchanges. And we're on track to do that.
Yeah. Duck Dodgers says, talking to West Virginia people about crypto is funny. He just got the internet and can't get cellular telephone service. What? I was just telling him before we started that my connection's so screwy because we're here in West Virginia. But that's absolutely correct. And I think that's one of the civil rights issues of this time. It's not about systematic racism or skin color or anything like that. It's about unequal access to the internet at this point. I mean, that's one of the biggest issues. And West Virginia is suffering in a number of ways because our politicians, as usual, let us down over the years. But again, that's just an aside here. Tell me about just comparing the US dollar to crypto. Is crypto more immune from inflation? I mean, it seems to be the biggest problem with the US dollar is that they can print more.
So for instance, TUSC right now has a 5% annual inflation rate. And as we grow in transaction volumes, that inflation rate will be removed or reduced. But that's in the code. It's not a secret. And that is the monetary policy of this. But that inflation, the new crypto that's being paid or, created is what pays the miners. It what pays the charity. It pays, the charity pool we have. It's what pays the block producers. It pays the workers. It pays the marketing partner fund. So that money is going to grow the network and support the network. So if you think about it, how do you pay for paper money? Well, governments have this thing called taxes. That's how paper money, but there's a big cost to managing, US dollars as a, paper currency. There's, someone has to buy printing plates and printing and buy paper, and someone's got to move it around and pull old bills out, put new bills out. And so I think if you think about it, there has to be a sustaining funding mechanism to keep that system afloat. We don't have the power to tax, of course. So as transaction fees come into the network as we grow, because we don't have a lot of transactions going across the network yet, then that inflation rate will decrease.
And what are the tax implications for, processing payments here, at least in a cryptocurrency? I mean, is it just at the on and off ramps where you assess your tax situation?
So no, there's actually, that isn't how crypto's taxed. So the IRS is challenging. I think taxation, the way the IRS treats crypto transactions, is a pain in the butt, to be honest. So we are partnering with some different groups out there to help make it easier for retailers to kind of take count. But right now, every time it's like if you sell a stock or buy a stock, the IRS treats essentially cryptocurrency as you would a stock. So you buy a stock, you have to maintain when you bought it, maintain and record your basis, and then when you sell it or trade it, then you got to realize that that gain or loss and then report that. Now there are tools already being developed to kind of deal with that, and so there are solutions for that. But that's an IRS thing, and we certainly don't control what the IRS does, and we don't control what sales taxes are. So even if you sell something for crypto and you're a business, you need to account for your taxation. And I always tell people, pay all the taxes you owe.
So just going back to some of the basic concepts that a lot of people like me struggle with, what is backing, not that anything's backing the US dollar, but what is backing cryptocurrency? Just the fact that how much of it was issued and how much of it is scheduled to be issued.
So, well, I guess backing is an interesting word. What backs the U.S. dollar? Most people would agree at this point, the official line is the full faith and credit of the United States, right? But really, we know what backs dollars is, one, it's the most liquid currency in the planet. It's the reserve currency of the planet. So for that purpose, dollars are useful. And so that's why people use dollars, and it's backed by aircraft carriers. That doesn't hurt either. So it's like anything else. It's utility. How useful is the crypto? For someone that doesn't do e-commerce and is not buying things on the internet at this point, it's probably not useful at all. It's probably not something they're interested in. And again, that's okay. They're not the customer. They're not the target market. But ultimately, what backs any currency is going to be the community around that. And so one of the reasons you do market and you grow that is you explain to people the differences between the government issued system and a non-government controlled system. And I would say this, if I had to project where's the US dollar going to be in 5 years or 10 years, I don't think it's going to be in a very good place. There's a very real concern among people that do follow economics that the dollar is going to tank. So the question is, if the only payment systems out there are dollar-based and the dollar completely tanks, you're hosed if you don't have a backup. And again, we're trying to position TUSC as one of those backups.
Now, looking more at the customer point of view, I can see how, the benefit of being able to process payments and accept payments as a company in the firearms industry. I see absolutely the need for that. Just from the customer point of view, why would customers? What's the sell to them to get them to trade in or to want to make payments in TUSC? Is it just the privacy aspect of it, or is there more to it?
Well, in our pilot, one of the things that we're talking about is for the retailers that are already used to paying 5, 6, 7%. What they're doing is they're actually discounting some sales if people pay them in TUSC. And so because the network fee for TUSC, for a transaction fee, and TUSC is only 0.5%, they're actually still making more profits. And for the retailer, it's good for them to incentivize their customers to buy on. So Citizen Armor, for instance, will discount a body armor purchased in TUSC right now. You call up Aaron over at Citizen Armor, he'll work you a good deal if you pay him in TUSC. So I think ultimately it comes down to the other benefit to the retailer to incentivize or encourage their own customers to accept TUSC is the fact there's no chargebacks with TUSC. It's beneficial to them. Some of the early pilot retailers, again, I don't control TUSC. I don't own TUSC as far as, it's not a company. But everybody's kind of who's involved in is a stakeholder. So remember, if you accept TUSC and you're holding TUSC as a business, you get to vote when you have that TUSC. You get to make, if I want to make decisions about what the Federal Reserve does with the dollar, I don't have any control over that. I don't have any control over what the U.S. Treasury does with monetary policy, but I can vote with my TUSC to make decisions about who works on the network. And, for instance, the inflation rate and things like that. Those are decisions I can have an effect in because it's a community run project. And I think that a lot of people like that community aspect of it because they do have some say in how it's governed, and it's governed by the people who use it. I like to tell people that we're kind of like, as a decentralized organization, we're kind of like a cross between like a nonprofit and a kind of a co-op. And so it's, like I said, it's not a business. There's no profit there, to be had by some central group. You go and, buy something with TUSC. I'm not getting something from that. I'm just one of the people that help put the software out and help our growing this network and grow this community to get the word out. Just like talking to you right now, I'm doing that because I want people to hear about it. Because even though there's trolls in your little comment box, there's also some people that might be interested in learning more about it because it might solve a problem for them. And again, if they want to help join the community and help it grow because they believe in what we're doing, I fully support that.
So how does, say, a firearms related business or even, a mom and pop gun shop, and the chargeback thing, that is a big advantage because that can be a pain as someone who does accept credit cards and pay deals with PayPal and all that. I mean, the fact that somebody, especially with services, when you're paying for services, the fact that somebody 5 months later can go ask for a chargeback, and now you have to go fight with PayPal or a credit card company like, I provided those services 4 months ago, and it can, how do you prove that? It becomes a his word versus her word sort of deal. It's a big pain in the ass. So I can see that as being a big advantage of not having to deal with any of that BS.
Well, one of the big thing is before we ever started coding, we went and started talking to the gun world first. I mean, we did a market analysis and said, hey, we're looking at the industries that have problems with, payments, and what are the ones that we want to be involved with. And before we ever started coding, we went and talked to retailers about their problems. By the way, no other crypto has ever done that either that I'm aware of. And we talked to a lot of other crypto projects too. And one of the things we found out, especially with the custom gun world, so these are like crazy expensive guns that might take 6 months to a year to get built. They might have custom paint jobs. Maybe it's a left charge handled gun or something. What we found with some custom gun manufacturers, that people get impatient. So it might take 6 months, like I said, or longer to get one of these guns built. It might be a $3,000, $4,000, $5,000 gun, custom, could have unicorn paints on, whatever the Cerakote color is. And so what happens is people put in a chargeback for like this multi-$1,000 crazy custom gun that is very unique to that one person's taste. And then because the gun industry is considered a high risk industry, they don't really get much of it away of an appeal on chargebacks. So they're just stuck with it. So in the custom gun world, chargebacks are a huge problem. And it's usually just because people are impatient. And so it's just another one of those things that crypto is better than like a PayPal or one of these other, different third-party payment options.
Old man here with another good question. Is there a minimum buy-in to be able to use crypto or TUSC?
Nope.
Okay, so I mean, if you want $1 worth of it, you can get $1 worth of it.
Yeah. So now there are some withdrawal limits depending on the exchange, and I don't make recommendations on exchanges. So I can't sell you TUSC if you wanted me to sell it to you. You have to go buy it on an exchange or a private party sale situation. But some exchanges have like minimum withdrawal limits, but it's not that much. I think the most I've seen is a couple bucks, $10 kind of thing. But when you're dealing with exchanges do have fees. So, but that's nothing to do with us. That's just what the exchanges charge.
So would you say there was about 14 companies that were accepting TUSC or in the process?
We currently have a list of 15 companies, including one national brand you would recognize, that have expressed that said they will accept TUSC when our payment gateways are ready. Payment gateways are already being developed and will be implemented hopefully fingers crossed, about 3 to 4 weeks. And then we're going to be onboarding. We know Citizen Armor in Provo, Utah is going to be our flagship because we love those guys. And they'll be the first. So they're already accepting it. They've done more sales with TUSC than any other retailer. We've got a couple of our smaller retailers that are already kind of willing to do manual transactions. But once the payment gateways are available, those plugins that make it real seamless as a payment option when you check out with your shopping cart, those will be ready in a few weeks. And then when we have those up, then we're going to be able to really start onboarding other people as a payment option. So yeah, I'm excited about it. And I think things are going to ready roll. We got a couple NFL players that are kind of as a brand ambassadors that are out there and working with us. We're talking to some other influencers and celebrities that are pro-gun people that are interested in talking with us about working with us. So I think it's going to turn out to be a pretty good project. I'm very bullish on what we're doing. We've been working on this 3 years now, so it's not like we're brand new, but it takes a long time when you're doing an open source kind of community project. It's not efficient like a startup might be. And as an entrepreneur, it's kind of hard and frustrating because I'm impatient. I want to get stuff done now, but I can't just dictate what's done. The community has to approve and vote on the things that we do. And so it just takes longer sometimes to get things done, but that's part of the process, right? You don't want necessarily abrupt changes when it comes to things that are serious as things on how a cryptocurrency is run.
What was the name of the armor company? Citizens Armor?
Citizenarmor.com.
Citizenarmor.com. So say someone like me, never been involved in cryptocurrency before, doesn't currently own or have any connection with TUSC. I'm in the market for body armor. So I go to Citizens Armor to buy some. How do I acquire, just logistically, where do I go, if you can tell us, to get this TUSC currency to be able to spend at Citizen Armor?
Right. So you would either right now you have to get some Bitcoin because we're mostly traded against Bitcoin, and then buy some TUSC with Bitcoin. And then over time, I'm hoping within the next 4 to 5 months, we'll be on a US based fiat exchange where then you could probably buy TUSC with a credit card. So again, that's just kind of a growth process. We're just beginning. I mean, we're really just in our roadmap. We're just beginning the public outreach in the last month and a half. So we're just starting to get out to the public now. And that's why I'm going on a lot of shows, doing a lot of interviews right now. And I do appreciate you having me on tonight. But that's part of the process. It's like, I mean, we're kind of like a startup. We're just kind of new and getting out there with our new product and new, project. And so there's going to be a lot of cool things happening. So I know that in the next, right now, we're getting in our first mobile wallet app, which we're getting into the Hydra wallet, which is a multi-crypto coin wallet. So that's going to be our first integration with a mobile wallet project. And so they're already testing. So that's almost ready to go. We're integrating with forging blocks, payment gateways. They're already working on that. So that'll be out there in a couple weeks. So we're getting a lot of things lined up. We've already been talking to a lot of the major exchanges, like I said, in the crypto ATM networks and stuff. So we got just a lot of stuff lined up over the next, 6 to 12 months. But it's just like anything else. It just takes time. It's a lot of work making this happen.
Well, for somebody who doesn't have never bought Bitcoin before, I mean, what's the best way to do it?
So
how do you start that process? Where do you go?
So if you're based in the United States, there's about a half dozen fiat to crypto exchanges out there. So you can go look at Binance US. You can go look at CoinZoom. You could look at Kraken, Coinbase, Gemini. Those are the big ones. They're all US based. They're all heavily regulated. They're all pretty safe. And then you can buy with most of those either with, I think they have options for either wire transfer, ACH, or credit card purchases. And then you can buy, Bitcoin or Ethereum, and then you can move that to some of the exchanges we're traded on right now. But we'll be on some of those bigger exchanges in a few months. It just takes time.
Another good possible market here for this, aside from the gun industry, is I know from trying to raise money or other groups trying to raise money for like a legal defense fund or or something like that, like for Kyle Rittenhouse, for example. Like if you tried to start a GoFundMe for some sort of politically unpopular or unwoke cause, a lot of times, GoFundMe is going to shut that down. And other mainstream, payment processors, they're going to shut down whatever, is politically unpopular or goes against their community standards or whatever.
I don't know if that's something that has been explored in the cryptocurrency world, but that's another. I think that's another thing. There's a market for is for a Kyle Rittenhouse type deal. If somebody wants to donate their money, it's very difficult to raise money in that way.
Well, I mean, you can even go back to WikiLeaks. I mean, WikiLeaks got all shut down from PayPal and stuff, and they were accepting Bitcoin years ago. They were one of the first actual controversial organizations to accept crypto payments. So one of the things that we built into our protocol, and we still have a lot of development to do, but one of the things we built into a protocol is that every time new TUSC are created, or we call it every time a block is created, a small portion of those block rewards are going in and filling up an actual charity fund. So one of the things that we plan to do, and we don't have this part done yet, is that we want to have it so that we can onboard, say, gun-related charities or nonprofits, so that they automatically get a portion of that funding. So we envision it something like, I don't know if you've bought anything at like midwayusa.com, but they give the ability to tack on a little money and they donate it to the NRA or whatever. So we're looking at something like that. And an additional charity thing, and again, this is just an idea, is we've brainstormed a few different ways that maybe you can designate a wallet that someone, so say for instance, you set up an account for, somebody who needs legal defense. Then maybe what we can do is you can now choose that every time you make a purchase with TUSC, it rounds up and funnels into this other maybe savings account or something, or a legal defense account. Or, right now, I mean, you could set up a wallet and call it whatever you want. And then you can just, you could just promote that if you want to donate TUSC to that wallet, it's going to go to that fund. So the hard part is not, making, transactions and deposits. It's how do you onboard those things? And so that's the thing that we don't know the best way to do that yet. The communities, we're rolling it around. It's not a priority now. I think that's probably something we're going to work on probably next year, because there's a lot to unpack with the people part. And every time you get into people making decisions about, oh, well, do we like GOA or NRA? Because a lot of people don't like the NRA right now, and there's some legitimate criticisms against the NRA right now. So does the NRA get a portion of that? I don't know. I don't know if I want to buy any more suits, So I think that's what we're not sure about yet on how the best way to do that. But it is something we are absolutely considering. But you could certainly just set up a wallet address and say, and link to it on a website and say, please donate TUSC to this wallet address, and that'll go for this fund. If it's it more be like an honor system kind of thing. I don't have any way to control that. And so I think that's the thing is, since we are a decentralized project, I don't have the ability to shut that down either. So that's the cool thing, is that you could set up and designate just a wallet, and then you do it as what you will, but whoever has the keys to that wallet would control those funds. But we don't have the ability on the project level or the code or developer level, we don't have the ability to shut wallets down.
Yeah. I think one of the fascinating things that, again, that interests me about this is just the financial records is, that's target number one in any sort of investigation, whether civil or criminal, where they're looking to find out exactly what happened. Financial records is where you do it. And they're there, and it contains an enormous amount of information about you and about your activities and other people's activities. There's so much information there. I think it's fascinating, the idea that we can have some, privacy returned to us using this sort of currency. There's still issues with that and drawbacks, I would suppose, in that, even a gun company or, FFLs are required to keep all sorts of records anyways. Mm-hmm. But just say you're buying body armor, or you're buying, magazines, something like that. Most online vendors that are selling something, they're going to have, all your information anyways. I guess you could put in a fake name if you just wanted to be Rusty Shackelford. And
I know that guy.
So, from what I understand, the crypto part is very, very difficult to track.
It's not actually. So you can go in a block explorer and then look what transactions went from one wallet. It's all open source. It's all those are all publicly viewable. But you don't know who owns the wallet on either end. That's
how are those dots connected? Say, I mean, if I'm trying to if I'm investigating, I'm trying to figure out who bought what, just using records or what you bought. How can I determine using
all transactions on a blockchain are immutable. So if I move from my wallet to your wallet, that transaction is publicly viewable and is permanent. And so some people are comfortable with that, some are not, but most cryptos are like that. And so ultimately, whether or not I'm doxxed on my account or not, that's the part that you need to figure that out. So for instance, if you wanted to buy a gun online or something like that, you might want to just set up a new account for that single transaction, for instance. And so there's ways around those kinds of things, but the way blockchains are, they're open source and transparent. You can see the transactions went from point A to point B. Everybody can see that. You can just go to the TUSC.network and look at our block explorer and you can search for an account and you can see the activity on that account. That is not, so right now that is not private. So
I can actually
the one thing that's interesting. Yeah. So one of the things right now is that in the United States, the American-based fiat currency crypto exchanges do not trade privacy coins, because the U.S. government thinks they are violating banking law, Bank Secrecy Act, AML KYC. So in general, so like in the box there under recent activity, whenever there's a transaction going through, you'll see, it doesn't sit there the whole time, but you'll see what transaction, say from wallet A to wallet B, there was a movement of this many coins.
Okay, so as far as information that's there to look at, all right, so it says witness. So is this just like the user ID of a wallet or
those are the block producer? Those are the block producer nodes. So what's happening is on average every 3 seconds is when a block is produced, and then it rotates between the block producers on the right, who gets to process those blocks.
Okay, so like TUSC, excuse me, TUSC Pew Pew. So how would you just as an investigator that's looking into this, how would you track down who TUSC Pew Pew is and what he had purchased with crypto? Is there any way to do it?
Well, TUSC Pew Pew is, just an account, but it is a block producer account. So if, I don't know a way that I can go back and dox who TUSC Pew Pew is. I don't have a way to do that. So if you go and set up an account, there's no AML KYC to set up an account. So I don't know who that account is.
Okay. So, I mean, it's possible for, the wizards of smart, if they really want to find some sort of electronic trail to track down who TUSC Pew Pew is, but it sounds like it's not as easy as it would be with a black and white financial transaction record from a bank. I mean, I guess that's kind of where I'm going with this. But
no, it's not the same thing. But again, but you can see who TUSC Pew Pew might do transactions with. So if they move money in and out, you can see which accounts that they're moving, to and from. But that's the same on most blockchains.
Right. So you can just start connecting the dots and drawing the lines together. And I mean, it definitely, it makes it much more difficult to.
Well, I mean, someone in the group even said, get the node IP and the ISP out and subpoena it out. That's a possibility. I know that most of I think almost half of them aren't in the US. Some are, some aren't. So that's one of those things. And then you're hoping that the IP address they're projecting is not running through a VPN and everything else. So there's a few different things that go into that. But yeah, I mean, that's one thing they can try. Doesn't mean they're always going to get there. But again, we're focused on lawful block producers and lawful retailers and focusing on solving a problem for lawful gun people. So we're not out there trying to be a privacy coin like Monero or Mimblewimble or one of these things. By the way, that's just not what our focus is. Our focus is on solving this one problem for lawful gun retailers. That's what we're trying to solve. So someone wants to create the next privacy coin that will never be tracked or, traded in the United States, and you want to do business with that, that's great. But that makes it very difficult for every single aspect of that project to be successful too. You're just going to draw a lot of scrutiny on yourself.
Even not just doing it for, to completely camouflage what you're doing. But for instance, buying body armor or buying something that 10 years from now or 5 years from now, maybe the federal government, bans and bans it retroactively and goes back through. I mean, I don't see a disadvantage for just having more privacy from the government, even if it's completely innocent and you're doing nothing wrong.
I'm saying is I don't have a problem with it, and I will absolutely support future development of anything that's private and privacy aspects. Trust me, I'm fully aware of the laws right now and the ramifications. If you're a privacy focused cryptocurrency, you will not be traded on American exchanges. And the government's actively trying. I mean, they're putting bounties on trying to crack Monero and Mimblewimble. Actually, I think Mimblewimble is cracked. There was a big flaw in Mimblewimble, but they're trying to go after Monero pretty heavily right now. And so I think eventually they'll probably figure out a way to crack it. And that is Monero is like it's the cryptocurrency that is probably most tied to most of the illegal stuff going on with cryptos. But the fact is, if you try to make your coin a privacy coin out of the gate, you won't get on any American exchanges, and it's going to be very challenging for American retailers to use it to trade in and out of it. So in general, I just think at this point, it's not probably a priority to focus on those possibilities as we grow later in life. Is there a way that we can do privacy features in a selective manner and an off manner? I mean, it's optional. I've heard that the IRS folks and the FinCEN folks are maybe somewhat okay if you can undox under a subpoena your old accounts and remove that privacy. And if that's allowable, then I absolutely support the development of adding that to our protocol. But again, that's not the priority right now because I know that it's just going to make it so we're not going to get anywhere. And if you look at a couple of the privacy coins out there like Mimblewimble, they haven't gotten anywhere. No one's using Mimblewimble for anything. And so it's just, again, we're trying to focus on getting what we say, closing that last mile of adoption by getting people to use crypto for actual payments, which to me is still the killer app. It gets us off dollars, by the way. So like I said, what are you going to do in 5 or 10 years if the dollar collapses? What's your backup? It doesn't matter if you got Venmo, if the dollars are running it, you're still host. We're trying to create a backup system that's not denominated in dollars that people are actually using. And that's the mission.
So if a firearm industry company, wants to, join this movement and be able to, as TUSC develops, be able to accept that as currency, what do they need to do to get involved?
Well, there's a variety of ways. So if a big company in the gun space wanted to, for instance, set up a block producer, I would support that. That would send a big signal that they're definitely interested in supporting the network and the community around this. Again,
what does that mean? What does that mean specifically?
Setting up a block producer?
Yeah.
It means that they're setting up a computer that runs the blockchain itself. And they're branded. If you go and look at the block producer, you can see a URL, and then you have to vote on those to get those positions. They're competitive. You have to run for office to be a block producer on our blockchain. And so, so you got to get out the votes. People that support the network are the ones that get the votes typically. So if a big brand gun company came in and said, I want to support the network, I'm sure a lot of people in the community would support that and give them a block producer slot and vote somebody else out.
But as far as just like mom and pop gun shop down the street, if they want to just try out accepting, some crypto or some TUSCs and try it out, I mean, is there
I mean, someone they contact? I mean, how do they start that
So,
process?
well, we're one of the only blockchains that you could just go to TUSCMP.1 or TUSC.network and shoot us an email. We'll help you onboard. We'll walk you through the process. If you go to TUSC.network, there are documentation about how to set up wallet, how to get involved, and where the exchanges are, where the trackers are, where you can track the price. That's all at TUSC.network. But we do have a couple contact forms. So if you have a direct personal question, feel free. One of us will reach out back, and we're usually pretty good within, generally within a day. We also have a Telegram group and a Discord that there's people in there 24 hours a day. If you have a question, there's lots of helpful people in there that can also answer some of your questions.
Okay. All right. I mean, I've probably taken up enough of your time here. I appreciate you. Appreciate you coming on and talking with me. Like I said, this really hasn't been something that I've messed around with, but I've heard other people talking about it. I've seen them talking about it online, and I guess most of that's centered around like investing in it. And I hadn't really thought about the purchasing part of it. So I think that is a really cool thing that could help an industry that is under attack now, and it's really going to be under attack the next 4 years, I think.
Yeah.
So.
And again, look, and I mean, no disrespect to some people in your group that are, precious metal bugs or, have some concerns. And I understand their position. I'm just saying is, this isn't the most perfect solution in my mind. A completely private, completely decentralized, easy, completely seamless way to get online and do transactions now would be the ideal, but that doesn't exist. You can't do it with Bitcoin. You can't do it with anything. And so it just is going to take time. But we also know that if you look out 4, 5, 10 years from now, and again, we're trying to build something that's going to be here in 50 or 100 years too, by the way. We're not building something that's just going to fly by night. And if you go look at where the dollar is going, go look at where the politics is going around the gun industry right now, and you go look at those two things and you tell me what's going to happen. And do you want to put all your money in dollars right now? And I would say that long term, we need to get off this US dollar system and have backup plans. And I think ultimately, when you start looking at that, we need to build it. Now, it might take 5 or 10 years for bad stuff to happen. I don't know when that's going to happen. It could only take 6 months or a year because of the politics right now with the gun retailers and what they are, the banks and things like that. So I really think that ultimately we're building that infrastructure now. We're putting down that foundation now. And if you want to be a part of that, we welcome you to our community. We want the help. We need help. We want people to set up nodes and block producers. We want people to say, hey, tell their buddy, hey, take a look at this. If you just start thinking it's the mark of the beast and that's just not your thing and you only like gold in your safe and whatever, I have no issue with that position. It's just not what our focus is. Our focus is not trying to solve all those existential problems. Our problems are, we're trying to focus a problem retailers right now have. And there's a whole lot of retailers. There's 55,000 FFLs in the country right now, and none of them can use PayPal or any third-party payment option. They're paying up to 7% transaction fees. That's the problem we're trying to solve right now. And so, and it's an industry I care tremendous about, a great deal about. And so that's the mission. And for someone who's like, I just want to buy a gun with cash, good, but that's fine. I buy cash. I buy guns for cash too. I make my own guns. So I get that. I get where you on some things you want to be hyper private, but if you're a retail and you're trying to, you live in California and you're trying to sell 80% lowers to someone in, Colorado, well, you need a way to pay for that. And that's where TUSC comes in. And again, at this point, if I can, help gun retailers get more products out into the market and get more guns in the hands of patriots because they weren't shut down by an activist bank, then that's my mission. And I'm going to focus on that mission. And if you don't like it, I'm sorry you don't like it. Don't buy TUSC. Maybe it's not for you. That's fine, but I don't care because that our mission is to solve this one problem, and I'm very passionate about it. I am not gonna apologize for that. There's a lot of crazy paranoid people out there and scared people and suspicious people, but those were the same people 20 years ago saying, I'll never put those are the guys that, say, I'll never put a credit card in a website. And they're the same people that show up at the range with a 45, 1911.
Right. And another thing that I think will be interesting is the litigation that comes. I mean, there's always a lag. I mean, we're just now seeing all of the case law developing out there having to do with social media. And it's amazing it's taken this long, but there's all sorts of new issues that are being decided about, when law enforcement has to get a search warrant, when they don't, for getting records from social media and big tech, or, GPS information as new technology comes about. I mean, it wasn't that long ago where we had the first decision on whether police have to get a warrant to access GPS information from your vehicle. And there's, I can't imagine how many more issues are going to pop up when, and if this continues with, the cryptocurrency trading and then combine the firearms industry with cryptocurrency. I mean, you could come up with infinite number of potential, mock trial scenarios. I mean, it really, I have no idea, sort of what's going to happen here, other than probably job security for lawyers. And that's kind of what I've realized that as of like March of 2020, when a lot of people were sort of going out of business or asking for PPP loans. I haven't had a vacation since then. And I've never been so busy in my life because, unfortunately I thrive off of chaos like many lawyers, and we've been in absolute chaos since then. It's only getting worse and worse. So it'll be interesting to see. And again, I knew nothing about cryptocurrency before this conversation. And what I thought I knew, I didn't necessarily quite understand. So I appreciate the, it shows the value of actually speaking to somebody who knows what the hell they're talking about, before you make decisions with things. But,
it's a lot to swallow. By the way, it's TUSC, not TUSK.
Oh, God. Well, whoever's at TUSK is getting a lot of traffic today. So.
Exactly. Dude, I have to say, look, there's a huge learning curve here. And that's why I'm focused on the fact that this is going to take years. I mean, I'm settled in that this will be a multi-year process. We're not going away. Yeah. And I think we have no burn rate, no overhead. We have a large reserve of TUSC in the bank, so to speak, for development and growth and marketing. And I love what I'm doing. I love this project, and so I think we're going to be successful with this, and I think we're going to be successful while solving a problem for a lot of people. And where that goes in 5 years, who knows? Where does that go legally? We've been following the rules the best we can. I mean, the way we launch, we're not illegal security under U.S. law. We never sold tokens, never sold coins. We never went through and tried to hype something as like this get rich quick scheme. We've just been bootstrapping from day one. We got a core of dedicated, developers that have been on board since the last 3 years. And so, we've been very careful trying to make sure we follow all the rules. And there are a lot of potential different, there's a lot of legal bodies regulatory bodies that, have all staked a claim into this, between taxes and FinCEN and SEC and the commodities futures trading folks. And so, and we've been very careful to follow the law. And we've got a lot of good attorneys that we talk to on a regular basis. And I think we have followed all the rules. So does that mean that we're immune from the government deciding we're going to just give you a hard time and do a fishing expedition? Well, we know darn well this is where politics comes in, right? I expect fully at some point, someone's going to look at us and try to give us a hard time. I don't think they're going to find anything, but that doesn't mean they're not going to try. But we already know that that's what the government does, especially when you're trying to do the right thing. So I just have to take that with a grain of salt, that's kind of the territory we're in with this. But again, we're focused on lawful retailers, lawful activity. We're focused on following the rules the best we can.
Yeah, I mean, it'd be interesting to see what happens when, look, Biden's right now looking at doing an executive order to bans, so-called ghost guns and anything, pertaining to them. And it would probably be very easy for them to take it one step further and say, well, we've got to stop the method that they're using to pay for these ghost guns, and they're using these cryptocurrencies, and what if he issues an executive order that says, well, now these are illegal, and I think there's a lot of issues there.
If you sold a ghost gun, you would be committing a felony anyway. So you can't sell ghost guns. You can't sell guns you make unless you go through and fill out a form with the ATF and serialize it in a particular way to a particular death. Then you can actually sell a ghost gun, but it wouldn't be a ghost gun because you just registered it. So if you're selling, it doesn't matter what you, here's the thing. If you go and sell an unregistered ghost gun or a 3D printed gun that you created at home, and you didn't create a form, it doesn't matter if you got paid in cigarettes, dollars, PayPal, Venmo, or crypto. You still committed a felony. It's not the payment method that's the cause of that felony. It's the fact that you violated, the ATF rules. So I don't think that changes it. Payment method isn't the regulated part of that. It's the same thing with buying a real gun. Like if you go to a store, the ATF does not regulate how you can pay for guns. They just regulate the fact that you have to get a background check and not be a prohibited person and everything else. You can pay with a check. You could pay them with cigarettes. You can pay them with gold coins if they're willing to accept it. You can pay them with TUSC if they're willing to accept it. And so that doesn't change because the government doesn't regulate payment methods for guns either. So again, it's just, if they want to say that you're doing something wrong, well, they still have to, say what you have to point out what laws did we break. Again, we're a payment rail. We're not a payment provider. There's kind of a weird nuance there too. But I think long term, we've done everything we can to be fully in a good faith ever comply with every regulatory body that we have to, that we're subject to their jurisdictions. We're not trying to skirt the law. We're not out there thumbing our nose saying we're a privacy coin, nanner boo boo. Screw you, Mr. Government guy. That's not what we're doing. That's not what we're trying to do. We're just trying to focus on the fact that gun retailers are paying up to 7% transaction fees and are randomly getting their accounts shut down from all sorts of different payment services just because they're gun retailers or gun affiliated and they've done nothing wrong. And so we're trying to solve that problem and fill that little gap. And if we can do that, I will view our process, our project as a big success.
Yeah, of course. Still, it's just like, the so-called gun show loophole. I mean, we know that there is no gun show loophole. It's all just fake. I mean, they lie and they get away with it. I'm just saying, I wouldn't be surprised if they try that.
It sounds good, right?
Yeah, I mean, maybe there will be a Supreme Court case one day about the right to utilize a form of cryptocurrency in lieu of the U.S. dollar. So it'll be interesting.
I think what you're going to see going forward is I think the U.S. government's going to create their own quote unquote digital dollar. They're going to say is crypto, which isn't. And I think at that time, they're going to try to revalue the dollar. I predict that's probably what's going to happen. So it's going to be interesting to see if they try to, make it so competing cryptos can't compete with it. It'll be interesting to see how that goes down. But I predict that's what the government's going to do. They're printing too much money. The dollar is going down the tubes very, very quickly. And so I think the handwriting's on the wall, and I think the central banks and I think the government realizes that. I do believe they're putting a backup plan in place, and it's going to be part of that big, whatever the new big reset is. But I think that there's a very real risk that the dollar is going to go away, at least in its current form. And what position are you in to be able to buy and sell things? Again, if you're living under a rock in a cave and you only pay cash and that's your thing, again, I don't care. But lots of other people do want to buy things and sell things on the internet, and they want to be able to do that across distances. And they want to be able to do that for a reasonable transaction fee. And that's the niche we're trying to fill.
I wonder to what extent actual red states like West Virginia or like Utah could assist in this matter just to help the firearms community, if they wanted to. I mean, our attorney general here in West Virginia is very pro gun. And I think he and some other attorney generals here just in the past few days or past few weeks had taken some steps towards taking on big tech for suppressing free speech and things of that nature. If they wanted to, would it be? I wonder if how it would be possible for them to help foster the ability to implement this service for the firearms community, just within the context of what a state legislature could do.
Well, it's really interesting. It's already legal that local governments can opt to accept gold, silver, or crypto in Utah now. They already have that option. It's already on our books. So they would just have to be convinced to do so. Now, will they do that at a certain time? I think they probably will. I mean, there's already, was it Columbus? There's some city in Ohio that already accepts Bitcoin for sales tax stuff, I think. So it's going to happen. It's just a matter how liquid these things come. I mean, let's just be honest. I mean, when you got Elon Musk putting $1.5 billion into it and now allowing people to buy Teslas with Bitcoin, crypto is not going away. Regardless of our feelings about it, it's going to be here to stay. It's going mainstream. It's going mainstream very quickly now. And so it's just a matter of where do you want to be? Do you want to be in 1998? I'm not going to put my credit card in a web browser because someone will steal it. And you're still at the range with your old 1911, or are you going to embrace new technology to solve problems? So I think ultimately those are just individual choices that people have to make.
Yeah, my kid had asked me today when we were in the truck, Dad, what was it? Were you alive when you had to dial up to the internet? Do you remember that? I was like, yeah, I was alive. He's like, well, what was it like? I was like, well, it was kind of like this. Beep, 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 beep. But yeah, it's amazing just from the time I was in junior high school, how much things have changed. And
junior high school, I was a grown up one then. I was still dial up after college. So, but I saw a lot, I've seen a lot. It's interesting because I'm an Xer. So I've seen a lot of changes. I mean, I didn't even get my first cell phone until I was like 28 or something. And I was in the pager generation. So it's like I had a pager. I was really cool when I was a kid. But yeah, I mean, it's interesting to see, I mean, when I was a little kid, we literally had, 8 tracks in our house when I was a little kid. And I think I got my first CD player when I was like 18. So I grew up mostly in high school with cassette tapes. I was a cassette tape guy back in the day, making mixtapes.
Yeah, I mean, when I was in high school, it was still nobody had a cell phone. I mean, they made them, and some people had them, but they usually were borrowing them from their parents, and still, people still did have pagers. So I mean, I graduated high school in '99, so that was right before the transition there. But
I graduated in 90. So
yeah, so
I joke around with my kids because my oldest is in college, and I'm like, I tell her like I was born during the Vietnam War. She looks at me. She's like, "You're a boomer." I go, "I'm not a boomer. I'm the generation everybody forgot about. We don't exist. Gen X doesn't exist, but we definitely exist." And it's just kind of funny, that whole thing with kids, because I got 3 teenagers now, and but it's interesting to see that transition though, right, with technology and stuff. And it's also interesting to see how the tech world has changed a lot. When I was growing up, tech wasn't something to be feared. They weren't a bunch of communists, in Silicon Valley. In fact, most of the time, most of those early tech people were very libertarian. I mean, that's where the cypherpunk world came from, right? And so I think that a lot of those guys, I don't know what happened to them, but they got replaced by these crazy communist, almost oligarchs that we're seeing in Silicon Valley now. And again, we're trying to take, I look at it like this: technology is not going to go away even if we don't like it. So it's just like guns. Okay. Guns are a tool. Cryptocurrency, blockchain technology are a tool. They can be used for good. They can be used for bad. They can be used for defense. They can be used for offense. We're trying to run defense and offense by proactively creating a cryptocurrency to help offset and fight against what we're seeing from the bankers in Silicon Valley now. That's what but here's the thing. Would you rather, deal with, Venmo or Cash App? Cash App's run by Jack Dorsey from Twitter. You trust that guy with running money and stuff like that? Or would you rather deal with, if you're in the gun world, I'm out there. I'm easy to find. You can go Google my name. I've been I'm not a carpetbagger. I've been very big on the gun world, publicly, for more than a decade. I ran for Congress in 2010 out of Colorado. Go look up my votes. I think it was Vote Smart, and look at my surveys from back then. When I ran for Congress in 2010, I was the only candidate in the state of Colorado by the Rocky Mountain Gun Owners Survey. They got 100% on it, and they wouldn't publish it because I wasn't a conservative Republican, which is kind of interesting. I was libertarian, and the Rocky Mountain Gun Owners, the guy named Dudley that was running it back then, hated libertarians. He was a very big social conservative neocon kind of Republican. But I'm saying is I'm very consistent. You can go look up my public record going back that far and where my positions are on guns. And I'm probably more extreme on gun rights now than I even was then, but I was pretty damn solid then too. And so to me, I see blockchain as one potential solution to help, bolster our position for freedom. Is it 100% panacea? No. That's why I own gold. That's why I own silver. That's why I own other stuff. That's why I own guns. That's why I own ammunition. So, there's a lot of this. Why I put on a prepping conference every year here in Salt Lake City called Off Chain. It's because I know that we need to educate people. We got to build communities. We need to build tools that are by us and for us, because no one else is going to do it. The one thing I think why the left is winning in the United States right now is because they know how to organize people and they know how to build communities, and we don't seem to be very good at it. And I think if we don't start figuring that out and start building, look at Parler. It was centralized. If everybody would have gone over to Minds, which is decentralized, it wouldn't have been shut down because it's blockchain based. If you're on YouTube, screw YouTube. Go to Library. It's blockchain based. They can't shut you down. It's like you got to start looking. There's tools out there. Start freaking using them, because the left is using their tools against us. And if we don't start taking these tools and start protecting ourselves and building our own communities with our own tools that are decentralized, that can't be shut down, we're going to get run over by this technology. And if you want to argue about, what other crazy stuff that, you're doing, good, argue about it. I'm going to solve a problem with technology I know that can solve a problem. And I'll help anybody who wants to build this community with us. I welcome you. If you're a retailer and you want to get on board, I welcome you. But we have a long way to go, but we're going to do it.
Yeah, it's becoming apparent more and more. Like I said, if you try to do a GoFundMe or something for any sort of conservative cause, well, that's just going to poof any second, because the second they find out that you disagree with them politically, or like Trump, look how they suppressed him and silenced him. So yeah, I agree, but like guns, diversity, right? Like the gun sticker that mocks the equality sticker, diversity with the letters made out of different sorts of guns and gun companies. There's nothing bad about having a diversity of different guns in your collection. That is a good thing. And there's nothing bad about having a diverse set of tools to be able to support the gun industry and support conservative politics, which that is similarly threatened. It's difficult to raise money for that. And I've been looking at possibly trying to set up a super PAC, and that's a real threat. Is well, how do you process payments? Because all they have to do is flip that switch, and yeah, you're a conservative or worried about conservative causes, but all they do is just label you something else. Well, you're a white nationalist, or you're whatever the key word is that they want to use, and then boom, that's their duty at that point to stop future insurrections and violence and not give you a platform for terrorism. Yeah, I agree. So I appreciate what you're doing, and I hope it goes well, and hopefully maybe I talk to you again here, as things develop. And again, let me put the website address up one more time here. TUSC with a C. TUSC with a C. And I even made it a ticker this time. So
that's awesome. Thank you. Yeah, and I do appreciate time. And look, I know there's resistance because guess what? I've been talking to people for years now, so I know a lot of the arguments that and objections that people have, but it's funny because the people that have the objections are not the ones that are in business that are struggling in the space. Typically the ones that I see that are objecting are not actually business owners in this space because they're the ones that have a big problem and it's a big stress for them. And so we're trying to alleviate that stress. So, and I understand people's take, but you can't eat gold either. You can't eat paper currency either ultimately. So we'll see where we are in a couple of years, but you know what? I would make time for you anytime. So if you ever want to have me back on, I'd love to chat.
Yeah, somebody had said, "Well, invest in ammo," and I don't think any of us could agree with that. Then if you bought a pile of ammo across the years, which hopefully many of us did, then yeah, you could probably either use it or resell it for a profit at this point. But
here's the thing: if you quote unquote invested in ammo, are you selling it now that you can triple or quadruple your money with it? No, then it's not. Then you didn't invest in it. If you're hedging because you think the world's going to end, well, that's a different story. But again, investments are sold when the market's hot. Right now, if you're interested, if you got a bunch of guns and you got a bunch that aren't laying around tonight, now is right now the time to sell it because there's lots of people looking for guns and you'll make more money on that. Remember, buy low, sell high, even with guns and ammo. So if you're going to call it an investment, realize that gain. If you're not willing to realize the gain, that's not an investment.
So all the guns over the years that I told my wife was a good investment for us. I was not actually telling the truth, was I? Because I knew that I was never going to cash in that investment. So
exactly. So and I don't mean to throw rocks. Trust me. I'm actually I think it's a good time there's a lot of people that need guns right now. So don't think of it like you're just trying to cash out. But think of the people that right now that can't get guns. So this is an interesting opportunity to help a lot of new people that are learning about the Second Amendment and self-defense. There are a lot of people that are willing to pay for that.
Sounds like a new charity that needs to exist.
Yeah. Well, maybe we can work that out too.
Yeah.
That's the cool thing about being involved with the protocol of crypto is that you can propose those things. I mean, we could make that happen if enough people in the community like the idea. We could do that, and that's the cool thing. We can actually do that. And in fact, right now we got a couple of TUSC guns that are being built that we're going to be doing as giveaway prizes. So we're actually going to be giving away some guns as kind of like a marketing promo thing. I think we're doing the first one the end of March. So we're going to look out to make sure you check out TUSC.network for updates on that. So we're going to be giving away some guns for free. So be kind of fun. So I'm going to try to do my best for that charity piece.
All right. Well, if you're ever in West Virginia, or really even Virginia, because I'm pretty close to the Virginia line, look me up and we'll definitely have a beer or something. But
absolutely.
But yeah, again, I appreciate it. And I'm glad that John Crump from the GOA, put me in touch with you because it's hard to stay on top of everything. Especially with my job, I'm so behind during the day. I only have at night really to look at anything else. So I'll definitely keep. I'm gonna keep watching this and see how it goes, and maybe I'll play around with it a little bit. I think my kid wants me to get a little bit of cryptocurrency so we can play with it some. So maybe we'll invest in it some or buy. We can always use more body armor, but. Anyways, thanks for coming on. I'll let you go here, and I need to probably get home. I'll be getting text messages, or actually, what my wife will do is she'll come on and start leaving comments on the live chat. So we don't want that to happen.
Sounds good. All right, John. Thank you so much.
Yeah, I appreciate it, and until next time, I wish you luck. And if you have any issues, legal issues, get a hold of me.
I will do that. And to the audience, thank you for chiming in. Even the trolls, I still love you guys too.
Yeah, we'll have to have both you and that guy Matthew on sometime, and I'll be the judge, and you guys can just duke it out.
Okay. All right, I'll see you later.
All right, see you later. Appreciate it. All right, so that's his website, or the website, TUSC.network. Check it out. Again, I didn't really even know exactly what cryptocurrency really was, and again, it was John from the GOA that was telling me about this, and that he had been already buying body armor using it. So I think this is like you said, a tool in the toolbox. I think it's a fascinating one, because knowing what I know as a lawyer, one of the first things that we do to get information about people is go to their bank account. And you can find out absolutely anything and everything. It is a perfect paper trail. There's so much information out there. So that's an aspect of this that I'm interested in, not to commit any crime, but to just be left alone and have some privacy. Our home is still our castle based on English common law and legal theories that help form the basis of our country. But we haven't applied that to other aspects of our life. We've gotten no similar protections for our vehicles. You have almost zero protections in your car. We don't have a whole lot of protections in any other aspect of our life. So, in the old days, at the time that our Constitution was ratified, we did have a lot of privacy and a lot more privacy anyways and freedom in financial matters and funding things and buying things. So I don't see any downside to getting government out, or at least giving us an option without government involved in it. So I appreciate you watching, and sort of a niche topic, but I think if you watched, you sat through an educational experience rather than the usual where I'm just ranting against our governor. So I appreciate you watching, and I'll be doing a little bit of traveling coming up here. I do have some other things in the works, some other videos I'm working on, so stay tuned. I don't know when the next live video will be, perhaps Monday night, and it'll have to be something un-gun related so that it doesn't hit the same algorithms with YouTube and Facebook where they suppress it. But anyways, thanks for watching, and I hope you've had a nice week, and tomorrow's Friday, isn't it? So have a nice Friday if I don't talk to you, and I will see you next time.